The Day Billy Fell Off the Cliff by Byron Broussard. The Day Billy Fell Off the Cliff, Part 10. Billy stopped reading. I've read enough here. What side are you falling on, Jessica? Motivated or crushed? The image of the flaming coffee shop was a welcome change for Billy, and he imagined he smiled when he saw Jessica's image. Honestly, I feel a little like I was still new here. Honestly, I feel a little like I was still new here, but the shit I did meant the world, and what you do with me still means something to me. Jessica took a short and quick sip of imaginary coffee. The lightning religion sounds like the perfect explanation for the war, though, she said, pointing out. Well, I, for one, am pumped, Billy told Jessica. Then he unsilenced Rick. The image of Rick appeared on the floor of the flaming coffee shop. He was half skeleton and still crying. Rick, I'm so glad you helped me out, bro. Can I do anything for you other than make you into lightning? When Billy said the word lightning, Rick looked up sadly. What else is there in this hell? Rick looked to Jessica, who said, Coffee? Taking a sip instead and staring. Coffee, swords, fire, and apparently the question of existence are all here in this place that can't be hell. Jessica was standing over Rick now. I would have consumed your sorry ass and never even thought about taking you out of my backpack. You would never become lightning if it was up to me. Rick cried out, and Billy noted that Rick responded more to the sentiment than the threats being spoken. I don't think Rick here wants to become lightning. In fact, he may even want to be trapped in someone's pack forever. Billy asked his intuition to show him the tree of lights again. He recognized it as a tree with branches below the trunk. Each soul started and was either consumed or consumed others, and the end game may possibly be to get all the souls into the star. How often do souls arrive here? Billy was answered by both an image and Jessica saying slowly, the lightning. The image showed a flaming beast releasing lightning from its back and souls appearing in cottages when the red lightning reached the star. Ah! Rick was screaming. The image of Jessica pulled out her sword and sliced at the image of Rick in very aggressive motions. Shut the fuck up. Have you never seen a god die? Billy took Rick and put him inside of his backpack. You were right about Rick, Jessica. And now I'm about to make some lightning. Billy exited the black of self-reflection and was greeted by the sound of a campfire. He was standing inside of a cottage looking at the coal floor. He stepped outside and looked up at the lone star in the sky. He could hear its lonely whistle like wind through trees. I want to track where Rick goes when I release him, Billy spoke in his head. I am going to follow this soul to where it ends up. Billy kept his intention clear and open, and he repeated the sentence to himself in his head. Billy then reached for Rick's soul and was not surprised when lightning zapped up from his back to the star. Billy looked up where the lightning had traveled for seconds after it had already disappeared. Then his attention was drawn to the cottage he had just come out of. There was a flaming man inside where Billy had just consumed Rick. It can't be him, can it? Jessica asked in a small, scared voice. Billy walked towards the flaming man who was holding his knees to his chest and extended his own flaming hand. After getting no response, Billy reached out and touched the flaming man to gather some information. It was Rick. and he did not have any memory of being lightning, but he did communicate that he felt like he had been there in the cottage forever. Billy walked out of the cottage and continued down the path. It is almost as if he is less ambitious now than in his first time here, Billy said inside his head. I don't think what drove him was ambition, but I do see what you mean. He probably still knows everything he figured out the first time, Jessica said. The Pathfinder found all known paths and gave up. Let's make some new paths, Jessica. Billy entered the darkness of self-reflection and saw the flaming coffee shop. Jessica was sitting in a booth like she was known to do. Let us start by finding out what happens in the moments before the lightning. Jessica's image looked up with wide eyes, realizing what Billy planned to do. Come on, Billy, are you really going to put me in a bag? Come on, Billy, are you really going to put me in the bag? Jessica's image was pacing back and forth. You are my best bet at finding out more about this puzzle. I am going to figure out why I am here, and maybe we can both get out of here. Plus, after you become lightning, you will have your body back. Billy did not want to do this against her will. The more cooperation, the better the results would be. They both knew that. Jessica's image sat down and sipped at a cup of coffee. What do you need me to do exactly? She ran a hand through her hair. I need you to go into the pack and come back here in your body and relay what happened to me. I'll find you after the lightning. I need you to go in the pack and come back here in your body and relay what happened to me. I'll find you after the lightning. Jessica started to pace back and forth again. All you have to do is have the intent of remembering everything. You will be inside the pack for the same amount of time Rick was in before his lightning. Jessica looked like she was bracing herself for Billy's words. Billy took his vision to the left and asked his intuition about his pack. The image showed Billy's head with a light inside it. The light was taken out of his head and put into the pack. While going into the pack, the light flipped backwards and upside down. Billy took this to mean inverse. Jessica appeared next to the image. That doesn't look fun. They were back in the coffee shop, and Jessica's image seemed to be more on fire than usual. She began to beg with her fist clenched and head raised to the flaming ceiling. Please, why don't we find someone else to ask? You can consume Rick again or find some weak-ass skeleton to take advantage of. Her head dropped and her flaming hair covered her flaming face. I thought we were friends, Billy. Billy was touched, but his resolve was unmoved. I've never lied to you, Jessica, and honestly, I thought you would be happy about being set free. If you set your heart and mind on remembering our time together, you will have the advantage of knowledge over most people here, including the flaming flying beasts. Billy exited the black of self-reflection and was greeted by the now familiar sound of a campfire. Billy walked down the path a few paces before Jessica spoke again. Where are you going? It doesn't feel like you're going to let me win this argument, she said in harsh, quick tones. You better look me in my image's eyes before you toss me in that bag, Billy. Billy stopped walking and looked around to try and hear any movement. I have not and will not give up on you, Jessica. I'm merely looking for a good safe spot for you to appear. Billy began to dig in the fashion of the fire dance because he'd seen it work so well before. When the hole was deep enough for him to stand in and still be unseen, He got out of it and continued his conversation with Jessica. Is there anything else you would like me to do or ask before we solve a great mystery together? Billy stood looking at the hole he dug and waited for a response. He had found a spot on the path that no doors were facing, so that onlookers would have a difficult time not being seen by him or Jessica. Billy glanced up at the lone star in the sky and heard the lonely wind for a second before looking away. "Why me?" Jessica asked quietly inside Billy's head. Billy entered the darkness of self-reflection to talk more formally. Jessica's image was in a booth of the coffee shop with her head in her hands. Billy waited for her to speak again, and she did. "I get it. I really do get it. And it's not like I am new to the idea of lightning, but..." She paused. "I'm scared." Billy's image sat next to her in the booth. "I don't have to remind you that you're a goddamned warrior. It's written all over your book." Jessica laughed and shook her head. "You're good, Billy, and you're right. You're good, Billy, and you're right. You haven't lied to me. I'll do this, but I will do this for me." She was standing proud with her flaming hair floating softly as if in a breeze. "Of course I'll relay the information to you after. This place gets dreadfully lonely, and you're a good friend to have." Her image extended a hand, and Billy's image shook it. "Thank you, Jessica. Of all the flaming skeletons, people, and beasts, you are my favorite." Billy exited the darkness of self-reflection and looked around. "Okay, so all you have to do is have the intention of remembering all of this, and also the intention of remembering what happens in the bag." Billy said inside of his head to Jessica. "How could I forget this?" She spoke in Billy's head as if in a dream. Then, a second later, went back to normal, saying, "Oh, what happens if I come back to the area you consumed me from instead of the area you released me from?" Billy's flaming body closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. "I should have thought of that earlier." Billy jumped down into the hole and sat cross-legged. The hole felt more private than the hut had ever felt. "Rick did end up back in the hut where I picked him up from." Jessica laughed. "Picked him up? You mean ate his ass?" Billy's head shook. Looks like we have one more mini mystery before we go solving the big questions. Maybe if we meet somewhere?" Jessica spoke. "What if you ask your intellect what to do?" Billy stood up in the hole and began to spin around slowly. "I know what I'll do. I'll test my people-finding skills on Rick. We aren't far from where he is, but this hole is disorienting enough for the experiment." "All right, let's do this," Jessica said in a way that seemed half optimistic and half impatient. Billy got himself out of the hole and looked around, hearing the fire through his vision. He began to walk down the path that was not an actual path. "Shall we bet on this?" Jessica laughed, sounding more nervous than happy. "If you lose, then you get turned into lightning. If I lose," Billy paused, "I'll be a flaming skeleton in no time." Billy could see and hear disturbance in the fire coming from a hole in the ground. As he walked past it, he glanced inside and saw a skeleton doing a fire dance. "Which of us has the more pointless task?" Billy asked inside his head, and Jessica answered, Your task seems a bit more noble than hiding in fear. Honestly, you've treated me so kindly since we've been together that this experiment feels like a hostile takeover. Billy walked past cottages that had peeping flaming people looking out at him. They didn't make any advances, but one flaming lady, who was half skeleton, outstretched her hand in greeting. I'm on a noble hostile takeover. You think I have time to talk to flaming skeletons? Squabble in shame, peasant. Jessica full-heartedly laughed, and Billy's flaming body puffed out its chest and began to walk in a proud rhythm. Billy took a right, then took a left. Billy took a right, then looked to the left at a cottage with an open door. That can't be the right cottage, Jessica said inside Billy's head. I think it is. Billy walked inside and saw a flaming skeleton rocking back and forth, holding its knees. Billy touched the skeleton's shoulder to get information through touch, and then he spoke to Jessica. This is Rick, and to find him, all I had to do was want to. Our plan is safe. Billy walked out of the cottage and back to the hole he dug in silence. He passed by 3 flaming men in respective cottages, 2 flaming skeletons in holes, and he managed to see 1 flaming beast in the sky. The flaming beast was seen after Billy followed a lightning streak back to the source. The beast was flying in a circular pattern that Billy guessed was some type of lightning ritual. He entered the black of self-reflection to see the flaming coffee shop empty. Are you ready? Should we go over the plan once more? Billy's image took a sip of coffee and waited for a response. When there was no answer, he went on. Your job is to have the intention of remembering everything, including our time together and your time inside the bag. Billy paused again. My job includes putting you in the bag and then taking you out roughly as fast as I did for Rick. Then my next task is to find you. Jessica's image appeared in the booth, looking sad and worn out. I guess my only problem is that I was supposed to be teaching you so that I don't end up in the bag or silenced forever, but teaching you has led me to being put into the bag. She sighed and continued. I know this also leads to my freedom, but to be here restricted as such has been like a vacation. I do love this coffee shop, and your presence makes it all the better. I'll miss you, Billy, and if you don't miss me, I hope I never know. Her image disappeared from the booth. Billy's image took a sip of coffee, then Billy exited the black of self-reflection.